Friends, these words were written by James, brother of Jesus, head of the church in Jerusalem, at the very source of that spiritual wisdom and revelation that came down through humanity and brings us here today. So the first thing I want to ask of all of you is, don't think that just because the words are simple and seem plain and understandable that we can take them that way. I suggest to you that what we have here is the tip of an iceberg, because out of this letter from this holy man of ancient time comes the whole legacy of Christian spiritual teaching in all its manifestations, in the ancient desert fathers and mothers, in the mystics of the church, in the saints, and all of that has occurred that was good coming out of these teachings. So this is not simple and plain, even though he speaks like a modern psychologist. Let me begin with that primal, wonderful metaphor found in Psalm 1 of all places, very beginning. Blessed are you, happy to be envied, you who meditate on the law of God. That word law carries connotations that are perhaps a bit oppressive, but law means teaching, the teachings given to us, this new way of understanding life, of understanding who we are. Blessed is the one who takes time to contemplate and to reflect on the purpose and meaning of their existence in the light of this wisdom. Because you know, there's a whole lot of people who don't, even a whole lot of people in church. They want it spoon-fed to them, or they think it's done for them. But we've been given free will in order to do what God wants us to do. To awaken to our greater potential of understanding and enlightenment, to in fact be transformed out of our initial selfish ways, we too might reflect something of that God-like unconditional love and compassion. Beings of light, children of light, that is our true destiny. Maybe it wasn't on a list of careers, choices you might make, but that's what it's about. These are all important matters. Don't wait until the end to figure out that you went the wrong way, that you didn't pay attention. So let's hear this glorious spiritual poetry, to be like a tree planted by streams of water. Now listen, that means that you can root yourself in the living waters that are spiritual power to give you peace, to give you strength, to give you hope, that even during a drought, even in the harsh winters, you are rooted in that eternal source of blessing and understanding, living waters, wisdom that allows us to be peace. Not to talk about it, not to vote for it, not to protest for it, to be peace now in this world today. To be peace when nothing's going right. We are given that opportunity. We just don't take it seriously enough, or we just leave it at the poetic level. But if we go from that tree planted by the waters and its endless resources given to it, because it is faithful to that which is higher than itself, then we can understand that what we have with Brother James, even though it can be a little too up close and personal, is the how-to, the instructions. Don't you see that in this great progression of revelation to human beings, not in general, but personally to you, from the ancient times until the arrival of Yeshua, we are revealed the secret of life, the secret of peace and happiness. Who here wouldn't like to spend every day at peace, to overcome all your worries, all your desires? We hear in James these words about desire. These conflicts and disputes among you, where do they come from? From your cravings at war within you. You know, every holy person on this planet, from Buddha to gurus of India, all the intuitions of those who have sought something more beautiful in life than satisfying the senses only, have come to recognize this truth, which means that this is universal truth. This isn't in a box Judeo-Christian truth. This is reality, that if we are driven by our desire, we will not be happy. He goes on to make it even plainer. You want something and do not have it. That sound familiar to anybody? You want something, you can't get it. Whether it's a position of power, a nice car, take your pick. Take your neurosis. We always need to have something satisfied. And therefore we are never at peace. I've used this so often, but I think it works. We never get past the 2-year-old who wants it, who's going to make a fuss if he doesn't get it. And here we are, adults with dignity, still behaving like that right in here. Except now it's worse. He goes on to say that those who can't get what they want and have someone in the way of what they want commit murder. Now that sounds alien to us unless you understand or remember what Jesus said. Remember when he said that famous law, thou shalt not kill? And then he says, but I say to you, a new teaching, that if you hate your brother or sister for whatever reason in your heart, you are committing murder. Let's translate that again. You are poisoning, polluting your soul, the atmosphere, people around you can see.
Conquest of our generation. First you had the sea, the moon, the inner journey, the outer journey.
That's why this is life and death. This is a methodology to get in touch with a way of being, a way of perceiving life, a wisdom from above, wisdom that we don't naturally have, because naturally we are of the world. What does that mean, of the world? And what does it mean when he says, if you are friends with the world, you are at enmity with God? Now that's one of those lines we like to quickly walk away from and not think about. Understand it this way. The world is a mindset, a way of being. The world is what we know out there, and we know in here is always in conflict, in disorder, in chaos, in unhappiness. We are that world that is enmity with God. Therefore, we have to figure out how to come out of that way of being. Churches are meant to be change, enabling communities. It's about change. And it horrifies me. Someone spends most of their life in church, and at the end of their lives, having moved off the dime, just like a person of the world who was never taught. And I don't blame them. The church suffers from real spiritual leadership, friends. It's a fact. That's why there's death everywhere, of churches, of places, of renewal, of real spiritual wisdom that you can put into your daily life and that will make a difference. You know, I wouldn't keep on talking to you if I didn't think that somebody sometime is going to get a seed that will be planted, that will one day suddenly blossom when you're in a moment of conflict, and instead of doing it the old way, you try something different. And then you know for yourself the power of this wisdom. It's not a belief system. It's not a creed. It's not some superficial religion. It's the power of life, life-giving words. It will lead you to happiness and peace, which is our birthright. The Holy One did not create us for 5 minutes on this planet to be stressed out of our minds. That's our mistake. Somebody gave us the wrong information. It doesn't have to be that way. And so we have to recognize first within, okay, the way I'm behaving now, that's the way of the world. That's the ungodly way. That's enmity with God's way, with a wisdom that is undefiled by our selfishness, by our pettiness, by our infantile wants. We have a journey to undertake internally, each and every one of us, a purification of ourselves, a simplification, a unification, so that the you sitting in the pew here and there carry that state with you out there. Because if it doesn't mean anything, then James says we lie against the truth. Plain and simple, flat out, in your face. Psychologist of the first century, how about that? He is trying to help us realize how urgent this is, to make it real, to live it out, experiential. It's not about intelligence and knowing a bunch of stuff. It's about living it out day to day, struggling with the mistakes. As I've told you so many times, the ancient ones called the church a hospital for sinners, a place where we gather and we know we're a mess. We're not going to hide that from each other. We're going to help each other out of it. And we're helped by these instructions that tell us exactly what we must do. And if we are told that and don't want to do it, that's called the double-minded person that he speaks of in chapter 1. Double-minded, hesitant, doubtful, unsure. And then he says that person cannot expect anything from God. Now you let that sink in a little. That ought to give you a few goosebumps, a little concern. We cannot expect anything from God, who is unconditional love. It means we have to unify enough to stand firm on something we believe in that will open the door to a greater power, open the door to hope and strength even in the worst of times. There are people who can make it through when they never thought they could because of this wisdom from above. Spiritual teaching that has been so perverted, so misrepresented down through the centuries. Let's try to rediscover it today. You try to rediscover it today in your life, in your way. Because God is interested in you, what you do this afternoon. And so our friend James, trying with human words to get through to us, says, submit yourselves to God. Resist the devil and he will flee you. What does that mean? Resist the negative thoughts, the arrogant thoughts, the I know better than you thoughts. Resist them, fight them, spiritual warfare, and they will go away. You will be empty so you may be filled. And then his glorious teaching, draw near to God, and God will draw near to you. Try it and see what wonders will happen. The supernatural, the miraculous, is to have a human being who can be at peace and happy no matter what. Can you imagine if we had times of people? What a powerful place this would be. What an impact we would have. That would ripple across the community and around the world. Just a few people truly living out this holy wisdom.
First you had the sea, the moon, the inner journey, the outer journey.